All right, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Bless God. I believe you've already prayed to start the class. Okay. Now, unfortunately, today I can't be with you in person, but this recorded video for you, and the TA will take you through the session while you watch this video. So, we're going to look at database connectivity, Java database connectivity. This is actually our last major topic for the semester. Database connectivity. Okay, so what is Java database connectivity? Now you would realize that we've beginning of the semester we've looked at the object-oriented programming concepts. We looked at exception handling. We looked at file input and output. And then we went into developing applications with graphical user interface using the Swing and the Abstract Windows Toolkit. Okay. And at this point, we want to see how we can connect the database to our application. Okay, how we can connect database to our application. Now, Java database connectivity is an API. Okay, this is a Java API that enables your applications that you've developed to interact with databases, or what we call relational databases. Okay, so once that is done, it allows for connecting to the data source, executing some SQL statements, or we call some queries. Okay, and also providing results. Okay, so in connecting to databases, what we mean is that the database, or as you already know, I believe you are doing it, you are doing database in a different course, so you already know what a database is. Okay. Now, it says here that a database is an organized collection of data, and there are many different strategies for organizing data to facilitate easy access and manipulation. Now, a database management system provides mechanisms for storing, organizing, retrieving, and modifying data for many users. A database management system allows for access and storage of data without concern for an internal representation of the data. Now, your Java programs interact with the databases using Java Database Connectivity API. Okay, a Java Database Connectivity driver enables the Java program to connect to a database in a particular database management system and allows you to manipulate the database using the API. Okay, so basically, that's what we are going to look at today. Now, when it comes to the Java database connectivity, okay, like we just read, it enables your Java programs to perform query and updates, okay, using databases like MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, SQL, okay, and so many others. If you remember from our previous face-to-face meeting, okay, I asked you to install XAMPP and Workbench. Okay, but today we are going to focus on only the XAMPP and see how we can use that as a tool, okay, to help us achieve the achieve the running of our application, okay, the integrating the database in our application. All right, so if you take any database or Java database connectivity, it uses what we call drivers. Now, these drivers helps you connect directly or handle communication directly with the database. The Java database connectivity drivers helps you handle communication directly with the database, and it goes through a particular workflow. So first you have to load the drivers, then you establish connection, and then you create statements or prepared statement objects. You perform queries, run some SQL queries, or using the execute query method, and then run updates using the execute update method. Then the next thing has to do with the results. So you retrieve data using the result set. And then finally, you close the connection, okay, the statement, the result set, to end the communication with the database. Okay. All right, so we are going to go through this process. We are going to go through this process using this simple application here, which is application 5. Now, in this application, it's going to be a console application, so we are not going to use the develop any graphical user interface, okay, just for you to understand the process of reading or communicating with the database. Okay, so if you go into your handouts, you see application 5. Now, this application 5 is a simple project looking at an application accepting the index number, the name, okay, the class mark, mid-semester score, exam score of a student. It will generate the total mark of that student and then assign a grade to the student. Okay, so it's going to take the index number into the database, take the full name of the student, take the class mark, continuous assessment mark, mid-semester mark, exam score, and then after that, it's going to generate the total mark and then grade the students. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to introduce you to or add what we call our jar file, the jar file. Okay, so on your desktop, you are going to locate this file. You are going to locate this file. That's the MySQL connector Java, okay, .jar file. So you are going to locate this file and we are going to add it to our application. We are going to add it as a dependency to our application. Okay, so to do that, the first thing we want to do, as we always do, is to create our project. So I'll create a project. Create a project, give it a project name. Let's say app. Give the project name. Project name is app 7 or app 5. So with the project created, when you look at the right hand side, or sorry, the left hand side, you'd see here app 5. That's the project tree. You see the dots idea. Okay. Now just right click on this app 5 and we are going to create a new directory. So click on app 5, go to new, new, and then select directory. Okay. So this should give you a small dialog asking for the directory. So in the directory, just type in lib, lib, and hit enter. Okay, so that gives you this directory here. Okay, the lib directory. Now you can see from here, let's just open the project folder. So app 5, yeah. So you can see the lib folder in here. When we go into it at the moment, it's empty. This is the source directory. Okay. Now, what we want to do is to copy. By the way, please don't cut. Okay, do not cut the file. Just copy the MySQL file. The jar file, MySQL jar file, just copy it. Sorry. Just copy it into the lib directory. Okay. So it wants asking if you want to move. Okay. But I'll advise you copy since the other classes will be doing the same thing. Okay. So maybe let's go through the copy approach so that some of you do not cut the file. So what you do is copy the lib file, go to the directory, your project folder, locate the lib directory, and then paste. Okay. So once you have it pasted in there, you should see the file here. Okay, the lib file, the MySQL file in here. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is to add it as a dependency. So go into File, go to Project Structure. Then under the project structure, Under the project structure, go to models. Under the project structure, you go to model. Under model, you see a plus sign here. Okay. So first, make sure you are on the dependencies tab. You see a plus sign here. Just select it. And then select the first option, jars or directories. Okay. Now locate your project folder, in this case app5, and then go to lib. Then now you see the MySQL connector file there. That's the .jar file. And then select it. After selecting, click OK. Then it's going to add this MySQL connector.jar as a dependency to your project. Now your application is going to need this in order to connect to the database. Okay, so once you've added it, just click on apply and OK. Okay, so now you are good to go. Click on apply and OK. Then you are good to go. Right. Now, so let me say we are done with the first part. So we move to the second part. Okay. Now, the second thing we want to do is to set up our database. Okay. There are two approaches. If you go by the handout, there's the approach where you can create the code inside the handout. You can create the database. You can create a database from the code. Okay, you write your Java code to create the database and so on. And then there is also the approach where you can create the database from your XAMPP. Okay, MySQL, create your tables, and then set the various properties. Okay. So at this point, we are going to create our database, create the various, create a database, we create a table, and then we'll add our columns. Okay. Now, we are going to use, or we are using XAMPP. So once you have it installed, I believe they're already installed on the PC. So what you do is you start the Apache, and then you start MySQL. Okay. Now take note of the port number. Take note of the port number. Okay, so you can see MySQL has the port number of 3306. Okay, so we are going to use that as part of writing the code to establish connection with the database. Then once you are done, click on admin. Click on admin. That's MySQL. Okay. Click on admin. So the admin will take you to this interface. Okay, open it in a browser and bring you to this interface. Localhost // PHP my admin. Okay. Now at the right hand side, you have the databases. This is where you can create, or the left hand side, sorry, this is where you can create your database. Okay. So we'll create a database here. Just a moment. Let me. So the project has to do with score. Okay, so we create the database. So let's name it score sheets. So click on new. Then you see the option database name. So under database name, just type the score sheets, preferably lower cases. So score sheet. And then once you are done, click on create. So that creates your database. Okay. So after that, we are going to create the table, the database table. So we are going to name this table result. We name the table results. And then we specify the columns. Okay. Now, when you look in your handout, you realize that, let me just come back to the handout. You realize that we are taking inputs for the serial number or the index number, the name, the grade, the class, mark, mid-semester mark, exam score, total mark. Okay, so we have how many variables here? So that's about 7 variables. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, now when we come to our database, we can, as you can see here, those variables have been named here or have been created here in the table. But now we are adding a serial number, which is going to be auto increment. Okay, so the first value or the first record to be captured into the database will take a serial number 1. Then that's an auto increment. So the next record entered will take a serial number of 2, and in that order. Okay, so if you look over here, you realize that one of them is omitted, which is the total mark. Okay, the total mark has been omitted here in the sense that we are not going to make input for the total mark. Okay, we can just calculate it. So we don't really have to put it in the database. We'll use it for computational purposes. Sorry. So we'll create 7 columns. and then click on create. Okay. So we have our columns here. The first one is serial number. The serial number, the data type is an integer. The length, we'll put there 5. And then the null index, we'll check that. AI, that's auto increment, we have that checked as well. Okay. Then when we go to the right, what do we have there? We'll leave that as it is. We come to the next one, which will say index number, index underscore number. Okay, so please don't separate the text as you are writing them. So the index number, we are going to use the varchar, and then let's say 10, a character of 10. I think the index number, ATU index number has a character of 9 characters. Then the collation, we use Latin Irish, Latin 1, Swedish, CI. Sorry, the first one, let's leave the null unchecked, but the second one, okay. The index number, let's check the null. So the first one, which is the serial number, leave the null unchecked because we are going to do auto increment, which is a primary key. Okay, that's going to uniquely identify each record in your database table. Then we move to the next one. We have here serial number. Sorry, next one is a name. Okay, so full name, full underscore name. We also use varchar for that. So the name, let's say 25 characters, and then Latin 1, Swedish. And then we check the null as well. The next value, we have the class mark, which is integer. The length of values, we choose 3. Check this now. The mid-semester marks, also 3. We check this. The next one, the exams mark, also 3. We are using 3 because we are saying that the value could go up to 3 digits. Okay, so that's why we are using 3. We check this, and then finally we add the grade. So the grade, we use the varchar because the grade, you have A plus, it's not a number, it's they are characters. Okay, so we do that. Select the Latin 1, Swedish, and then check the box for now. Okay, so once we are done this, you'll see the save button over here, and then just click on that to save your database. Okay, so you can see now your database table has been created. Okay. You have the database table created. All right, so once we are through with this, let's go back into our IntelliJ and then start writing our code. Now, because you already have the code in your handout, and I'll just explain, do copy and paste, and then let's explain so that you guys can also follow, okay, whilst you type. So we go into our src folder. Main file there, I'm going to delete it. And then we create our package. So first we create a package. We name our package com.application5. com.application5. And then inside our package, we create our project, or we create our Java class. So we name it app5. Okay. So now the first thing we want to do is to write our program to declare our variables. Okay, so the first variable we are going to declare is going to be for the connection. Okay, so we say private static connection. Okay, so once I'm typing it, you can see here that is going to call the MySQL, okay, java.sql package. Is going to import it. So once I select that, okay, it imports that package. Then we give it the object mycon equals now. And the next thing is to declare the variables that we are going to use. So private static string. So the first one is the index number. Okay, so you have this already in the slide, so I'll just copy and paste the rest. So you have the index number, we take the full name, we take the grade, we take the class, which is a float, the class mark, which is a float. We take the mid-sem mark, which is also a float. We take the exam score, also a float, and then we take the total mark. Okay. Then we're going to declare another variable for the scanner. Scanner. Okay, so we say scanner input. And then maybe name the other one scanner. So we are going to introduce two. If you look in your handout, you have scanner SC and then SCR. All right, so the next thing we want to do now is to introduce our main method. So PSVM. Okay. Then inside the main method, we are going to, okay, we'll come back to the main method. Okay, but if you look in the handouts inside the main method, there are two um, methods here which are being called. Okay, so you can see the get my con method, which we are going to create right now, and then the create new table method. So you create this if the table does not exist, okay, in the database. So we'll look at that. But we have the get my con method. Okay, so we are going to create that method and then call it inside the main method. Okay, so I'll just go out of the main method shortly and then introduce that method. So we say private static connection, then we say get my con method. Now in this method we are going to use our try catch exception handling technique to handle the connection, okay, to make sure that the the Java application through the MySQL connector is now able to establish connection with the database. Okay, now we do that. First, we introduce our try. So the try, as you all know, is going to handle the part where the code is able to establish connection, and then we introduce the catch. Okay, so let's go to the try first. Now to do that, we introduce three variables. First, the URL. Secondly, first the URL. So what's the URL? So we are going to use the URL to our database, and it starts with the JDBC. Okay. Now every database you use has how you connect it, okay, or has its own URL for the connection. So with the MySQL, we start with JDBC colon MySQL colon / and then we introduce the localhost colon, then we introduce the port number, which was 33 or 3306 / the database name, which was score sheets. Okay, we name the database as score sheets. If you aren't sure, you can always go back and confirm. Okay, so the database name is score sheets. The port number is 3306. Okay, so when we started or launched MySQL model. The next thing is to introduce the user. Okay, so by default, the user name is root. That's to the database. Okay, so what people do is they can change the database name and secure it with a password. But if you don't do that, by default, it's root, and then the password is by default now. Okay, there's no value in there. Now, after initializing these variables, we introduce myCon, which we declared earlier. So myCon, and then we call the driver manager dot get SQL connection. Then we specify the variables we declared here. So first the URL, followed by the user, followed by the password. All right, so this is so because of exception, which we are going to handle inside the catch shortly. Then after that, we want to introduce a J option pane, which will indicate based on the swing components. So more like a dialog which will pop up and then show us a message. So dot show message dialog, and the message is going to be connection successful or connected successfully. Connected successfully. Okay. So it's one of the key things you should know if you want to establish connection with a database. This is the first thing you have to do. Okay. Then inside our catch, we just handle the SQL exception. SQL exception. Okay. As simple as that, we know that we are doing SQL. So database exception dot print stack trace. Okay. So with this, we've handled our exception successfully. Okay, by trying to establish connection. So now the next thing we do is to return my con. Okay, so that's after the catch. Right after the catch, we put the return my connection. Okay, so this is one step you should know off head. Okay, because you are now coming to make sure or check to see if your database can now communicate with your Java application can now communicate with your database. Okay. So once we've done this, we are going to call this inside the method. So I'll copy this and come into our main method and paste it here. All right, paste once. Okay. So once you've done this, you are calling this method the connection method. So I'll click on it, run. Okay. So you can see this dialog box here, which shows that what's showing that connection or connected successfully. That's the show message dialog. Okay, so the show message dialog, which we have here, is now showing us that our connection is successful. Okay, so that means that now we can communicate with our database. Okay, so once you've done that, the next thing to do is to write the code to create the database and enter the various details. Okay, so I'll the take you through that I will not be writing the code since you have your handout. Okay, so I want you to do that. But what I'll do is to take you through the code. So the main thing today is to help you establish connection. Then I'll explain the code to you so that you continue working on it. Okay, so let's go back to the handout. So this is what we've done. So the next thing is creating a table. Okay, so this particular method, let me copy it into. So we have the main method here. We have the my connection method. So let me come to the next one. Create a table. We have the code here. So this is the create table, create new table, create new table method. Okay. So inside that method, we introduce our try. Now in here we have the database metadata. Database metadata. So we introduce the database metadata. So database metadata provides information about your database. Okay, so that's the metadata. It provides information about the database. So we use that, and then mycon.get metadata, then result set. The result set also, it's used, or it's an Java object, okay, that represent the table resulting from the SQL. So we introduce the result set here, and then it takes this argument, okay, with here results. So if you remember, we named the table results. Now you can also do it from here directly. Then after that, it says as if statement, says if result equals set, result set dot next. Okay, that's if the table exists. Okay, so what we are saying here is that if the table exists, it should do nothing. Rather, it should call these methods. Okay, and we'll come to these methods shortly. That's if the table exists. So you can tell that in our case, we already created the table. Okay, so the table already exists. So because of that, it's going to execute this part of the code by calling these methods. Okay. However, if your table doesn't exist, or if the table doesn't exist, then it uses this else. Okay. So the else is going to create the table. So string SQL equals create table. So we write those queries, prepare statements to create the table. So you can see here, serial number int, we specify it as file, not null, and then we did the auto increment, we did the index number, varchar, I think we did it as 10. Okay. The name, we did full name, class mark, okay, in that order. And then we did the primary key. I did this full name. And then the serial number, okay, was a primary key, if you remember. Okay, then we add our prepared statement. Okay, prepared statements. Now, prepared statement in Java is simply, or it's within the Java SQL package, and it's used to execute SQL statements. Okay, execute SQL statements. So prepared statement equals my com prepared statement. Then statement.execute. If you remember earlier, I mentioned the execute update and then the execute query. Okay, then J option pane to show the message the table is created successfully. That's if you didn't go through the routes we use. Then after creating the table, now it comes to implement the method. Okay, so over here, the table in our own, the table has already been created. So what are these three methods? Now let's go into them. So the first one is the get student details. The second one is insert data and then assign grade. Okay, insert data and assign grade. So the creating table part method is in the try catch. Okay, so you can see that table being called inside the main method. Now, here we have the student details method. So private static void get student details. So first it says enter the student name, accept the name, enter the full, accepts the full name, enter student index, accept the index, enter the student marks, the class mark, enter the mid-semester mark, enter the exams score. Okay, so it's taking all those things as input. So that's what forms the get student details method. Okay, so that method is being called here, get student details. So it's going to get it into the database that's already, or the table, database table that already exists. Okay. Then we move to the next method. Let's go to the insert data first. Then we will come to the assign grade. So there's another method to insert data. Okay, so this method is key. It's looking at how the details that we've entered is going to be inserted into our table. So insert data method inside the try catch we have here SQL string SQL, just like the way we created the table, string SQL into insert into results. So this result here is the table. Okay, result values. Okay, so it's giving you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these question marks here are 7, representing the number of columns we created. And then we introduce our prepare statement. And like I said, the prepare statement is used to execute SQL statements. Okay, so basically the prepare statement set the input data. Okay, into the SQL. So we have here statement dot set int, okay, parameter index 1 at position, okay, 0. So parameter index 1, that's to say that the first value should take index of 1. Okay, so this int here is for the serial number. Then the next one is the serial number, yes. So parameter index. So more like you have a, let me just demonstrate this. So it's more like you have a table. Okay, let me use Excel to demonstrate this quickly. So it's like you have a table, you have the serial number here. The next column is index number, then full name, okay, and that's order. And that's order. So if it takes the first record, takes the index number, and then takes the full name. Now, the first record here, which is the serial number, is position 1 or parameter index 1. The second one is parameter index 2, which is the index number. Okay, so it's trying to identify the various parameter index for all the data variables that we created, okay, inside our database, or the various columns, so that it can assign the values in that order. All right. So that's that for the various variables based on their data types. Then introduce insert data method to update, execute update to update the table. I said if the insert data is greater than 0, that's if the data is inserted successfully, it returns 1. So it returns data inserted successfully. However, if there's an error, it should show you error, entry failed. Okay, then we close or end with our exception. So that's the insert data method. So you can see that method is called in here. Okay. So now if the data has been accepted successfully, what next? The next thing is to assign the grade. So assigning the grade, we declared this variable total mark. However, we didn't add it to the columns in our database. So we said total mark equals class mark, so your continuous assessment plus your mid-sem plus your exam score, which should be over 100. Okay, then we use this method. This is something you should know from Java 1. Okay, so if the total mark is greater than or equal to 85, then A plus, the grade is A plus, okay, all the way to F. And then finally, we return the grade. Okay, so simply, these are the three methods: get student details, get assigned grade, and then insert data. Okay, so all those methods are called here where the table is created, and then this table, create table method, is now called inside the main method. Okay, so this is a code. This is the exact code in your handout. Okay, so it's giving me an error here because I did a swap. Okay, so maybe I made some changes. Okay, but the actual code we started writing earlier was able to establish connection. So once we get this code there, write it and modify it in that format, we should be good to go. Okay, so I'll end this video here. I believe the TAs will guide you. If you have any question, you can hold on to it. When we meet next week, I'll address all those questions. Okay. All right. So enjoy the class, enjoy the code as you complete it. And may the grace of God and the favor of God locate you as preserve you as we meet again next week. All right. Thank you all. And goodbye.